Hi and welcome to my water cooling video for 2019. It's July 5th and I haven't done a water cooling video in a few years, so I decided to rip apart my rig and clean everything. I cleaned the inside of my power supply, cleaned the fan in my video card, and I found some problems. I have this cheap eBay water block. It's solid metal, but inside it was starting to corrode. So if you have anything in your system that's aluminum, and even if it's aluminum and it's got a coating of some other kind of metal on there, there's a chance of that eating through, and it basically eats through the top coat of the metal. And even I have two blocks. I have an EK block here, EK Supreme something. It's solid copper, I think, or solid. It's solid metal anyways. And inside you can see that the finish is worn off a little bit, but it's holding up pretty well. I bought an aluminum radiator, and if you have a mixed metal system like copper and aluminum, there's a chance you can get a corroding effect. It's like electrical chemistry effect, where it starts to corrode one of the metals, and aluminum is usually the one to corrode. And I think copper and brass don't corrode as much as like tin and aluminum. So if I were you, if you're running an aluminum radiator or aluminum fittings, or the fittings can wear right out. The fittings can wear right down. Any aluminum parts can wear right out. So if you have any aluminum water blocks, or parts of your water block is aluminum or tin, I would keep an eye on that, and I would crack open your cooler every once in a while and check them. So anyways, I ordered another EK solid core block. This is an EK full metal block, and I ordered another EK full metal block for this side. This is just a cheaper cooler, and so that comes, I'm going to swap it out. And oh, sorry about that. There's my video light. It's just hooked on. So I'm just going to briefly run down my system. I have a 2011 Xeon version. They're up to 2011 version 3, I think, right now. Those are the newer motherboards, and mine's a 2011 version 1, which means I can run E5 2600 chips, version 1 and 2, and not version 3 and 4. So it's a pretty good system. I think my two chips are 2660s. I'm running, I think, 38 gigs RAM. It's on Windows Professional 8.1, 64. And it's been a pretty good system for me. It's benching out at around 1600, 1700 score for CPU benchmark, and that's pretty competitive still now. So yeah, I have I think it's called the EK block HF Supreme block here, and I open it up and it hardly has any wear. It has a little bit of the metal covering is wearing down inside, but it's in pretty good shape. This one is just an eBay cheapie, and inside it was really in bad shape. It was starting to corrode. So I have another EK block on order for that one. I'm using this really thin-walled tubing now, and it tends to kink up, so you have to keep an eye on it. This is my Swiftech MCP 655. I had the smaller version. I think it's the 355 Swiftech pump, and it burned out. So I managed to score a bunch of water cooling parts on Craigslist, and I got 2 of these pumps. These are the larger 655s, and they're great pumps. Really solid pump so far anyways, and I've been running it now for probably about a year or 2 years now. So I completely tore my system down, and I got some spray air, and I pulled out my power supply out of here, and yeah, I completely blew it out. I took the fan cover off and then blew it out, and there was a lot of dust in there. And also, with these type of larger fans, you can sometimes just pull the whole fan right off, and it comes right out of the motor, and then you can clean off the inside of the motor very carefully with a Q-tip, and maybe some acetone or something, and then you can re-grease the shaft. You know, just put some nice grease on the shaft, and then it all just snaps back together, and then you're good for a while. So this is my old copper. I got rid of the aluminum because of that. There's a, you know, if you have copper and aluminum parts, they can have problems, or copper and aluminum, or tin, and sometimes the fittings can corrode too. So the fittings can corrode. Any aluminum parts can corrode. Aluminum parts in your block can corrode. So yeah, if you're worried about it, you know, take apart your system every once in a while and check the insides of your water cooling, your blocks. Also, the blocks have a little seal on them, and sometimes that seal wears out, and so what happened was my seal wore out, and I had some silicone, a flat piece of kind of like silicone rubber, very thin, like maybe 0.5 millimeter, and I had to make a new gasket for this one right here because the gasket, it was leaking. Before you put your loop in your system, run your loop when it's not attached to the motherboard, so then you can catch any leaks before they actually destroy anything. So yeah, when I ran my loop and I tested my cooler, or my block, when I put it back together it was leaking, so I had to make a new gasket for it, and then put it all together. Now it's watertight again, and so yeah, I'm using this new, it's high temperature tubing. It's Tygon, and I got it on eBay. I have tons of it. I think I got like 50 feet of it, and so it's this new tubing I'm using, but like it kinks pretty easy, and so my whole system's running really good. It's in the 30s, and here's my Quadro P2000 card, and I think it's got 5 gigs of RAM, and it runs good, but it was running like over 70 degrees, which is like, I found out was pretty normal for video cards to run like 70 degrees. And so basically, as you can see, I put a fan on the top of the card. It's kind of weird because the back of the card is facing up. So I stuck a fan on there. You can see it just pointing down. It's just sitting on the card, and that actually cools it by about 10 degrees. And so I have this program called Speed Fan, and you can actually graphically see the temperatures when you play games. So it'll show you in game, like you just turn it on and it'll show you what the, you know, temperature is before you game and then after you game. And it showed my resting temperature at like 40 degrees, and then it went up to like, I think it was like 75 degrees, and now it's going up to only 65 degrees, and that's on full settings on Doom, on 2560 screen resolution. So it's going pretty good. It's running like, I think it's running around 10 degrees cooler, which is really awesome. And my whole system, since I, like, this cooler right here was all corroded inside. It was really disgusting, and it had like crap in there. I guess it was like crystallized metal or whatever inside. And so anyways, once I replaced it, I just using distilled water, and so I replaced that. My aluminum cooler, which is a smaller radiator, it had to be repaired. And no, I mean, it was corroded too. So now that I'm running new distilled water, I just opened my pump. I didn't do anything to the pump. I just opened and looked inside, and it looked fine. I'm running, most of the tubing is new, this new thin wall tubing now. Both coolers are, this one wasn't, this was pretty clean. The fins had to be cleaned. The fins got gummed up in both of them, so I had to clean out the like copper fins. This one was really gunked up. So now, on average, I'm running, my temperatures are pretty good now. They're like low 30s for both Xeons. So it's a really nice, cool system right now. So that's all I can pretty much tell you. You know, I hadn't done, and then of course I cleaned the case out. It's a really nice, it's not a Leon Lee branded case, but it's aluminum case. Really nice custom work on this case. I think I really scored it with this case. The whole front clicks off. It's all modular. It's a really nice case, and it's extended ATX case, because that's what you need with most of these Xeon boards. Yeah, it's the system is, you know, I feel really good because I feel like the system's going to be solid for another 2 years. I put back in my faithful old Swiftech radiator right here, which has had a lot of use on it. It's all brass, I think, or all copper, so it's a little bit green tarnished inside, but I feel better using it over the aluminum, and I'm never going to use any aluminum parts. So yeah. So anyways, that's my update. The NVIDIA fan is just a little dinky fan on this Quadro P2000. So, and it gets clogged with dust pretty bad. So there was a ton of dust in there. And then adding this fan on top, that might be an idea for somebody. So yeah, the two main ideas about this video are, get yourself a larger, oh yeah, and here's my overflow tube. So the overflow tube, as you can see, the pump is going into the radiator, like, no, the pump, this top part of the pump is where it shoots out, like that's the directional flow. So the directional flow of this pump is upwards, so it goes into cooler 1, and then through cooler 1 into cooler 2, out of cooler 2, and into the radiator. And between cooler 2 and the radiator, that's where I have my fill tube. I relocated my fill tube. So I had it in before, I had it in a different spot before. I think I had it where in the outflow of the radiator into the pump. That's where I had it before. So yeah. And so getting this thing running and getting all the bubbles out of the tubing is a bit of a pain in the ass. Here's another pointer you can do, is that when you're filling your water cooling, you can see this is the power right here at the bottom of the screen. This is the power connector for the pump. Two things is that these pumps draw a lot of power, so use a big power supply. I think mine's rated at 750 watts. And then you have separate connectors on your power supply. And don't daisy chain anything to the pump. Use a complete separate line to your power supply, and only have that for the pump, or else it might not even turn on. That's one thing. The second thing is that when you're starting the water cooling and you're adding the coolant, you can fill up your overflow tube right here, or your reservoir, and then you can turn on your PC, and then I wouldn't even boot it into Windows, just turn it on and don't log in, and then just you fill the tube up, and then you take this and unplug it and then plug it in, and that'll cycle the pump for a little bit, and then once you've sucked coolant in, or distilled water, then unplug it and then fill the tube more, fill up your reservoir some more, and then cycle. You have to cycle your pump a few times, like maybe 6 times to get the whole thing flowing. And yeah, sometimes it's a pain in the butt, because sometimes you have to kind of tilt your radiator so that the tubes are at the top, because then you'll get all the bubbles out of the radiator. And also this pump seems to work best. It's got a stand with it, and it seems to work best. It's made to work so that it's sitting in the stand and it's in this upright position. So I wouldn't use it any other way. Like, that's the way it's made. And I've got this dampening cloth underneath, because there's a little bit of vibration there that's kind of noisy. So yeah, it is running noisy right now. Hopefully if I get all the bubbles out, it'll be a little bit less noisy. So yeah, I hope there's some tips in there for you water cooling people. Yeah, these tensioners, when you're fastening your Xeons onto the motherboard, this is really scary too, because these screws, they've got these spring-loaded spring things. So you got to undo those spring nuts all the way, and then put the screws in, and then just tighten the screws until they're snug. Don't over tighten those, because you could damage the whole motherboard. So just snug in these screws, not too tight, and then snug down these spring fasteners, and that'll make sure that the block is on the chip. So yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't have much experience with the Acetal blocks. Go with the larger style 655 style pump. This pump, they make a lot of different brands make this pump now. When you're using fittings, like, I would be careful with the fittings and make sure you're using like really good quality fittings, because the fittings can wear away. Anything made out of tin and anything made out of aluminum in your system can give you a problem, especially when you're running copper. And usually everything's copper. Like the blocks are copper that actually touch the chip. They're all usually copper, and so I would stick with an all copper, or all like good quality metal blocks. Or I'm not a fan of the new acetal, but it seems like everything now is acetal, so I would always go with a copper radiator. You can't see it, but there's 2 fans behind the radiator blowing air through it, so you gotta always have fans on the radiator. So yeah, I would always go with a copper radiator, larger Swift-Tech pump, use the all copper, like good quality CPU blocks, and yeah, I'm even using plastic fittings on the radiator here, or like, I don't know, it's some kind of plastic, but they screw into the radiator. So that's even more favorable, because they don't corrode, and that's what you're looking for, stuff that doesn't corrode. Okay, thanks for watching this video. Cheers.